Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Amy Salazar, and I'm part of the executive leadership team for the National Research Collaborative for Foster Alumni in Higher Education, and I host our web series. So I'd like to ask for if you can please keep your videos off, and also if you have any questions, please feel free to write those in the chat box as we go. And just a reminder that all of our webinars are recorded and we post those on the NRC FAHE website, and on our YouTube page has all of our past webinar recordings that you can access there anytime. Okay, so before we get started today, I just want to give a little reminder about our next upcoming webinar. So our next webinar will be Tuesday, March 8th from 11 to noon Pacific time, so 2 to 3 Eastern. And our presenters will be Drs. Kizzy Lopez from Fresno Pacific University, Jennifer Geiger from University of Illinois Chicago, and Nathaniel Ockpich from University of Connecticut, and Sarah Gamez from California State Polytechnic University, Pomona. And their presentation is entitled The Impact of COVID-19 on Campus-Based Support Programs Serving Youth with Foster Care Experience. Focus groups with administrators and students. So that presentation will discuss some findings from focus groups conducted with campus support program administrators and students from 2- and 4-year colleges in California during the COVID-19 pandemic, and presenters will describe challenges faced by both the administrators, the programs, and students, as well as some lessons learned from going forward. So please, if that sounds interesting to you, please sign up and register. You can register for that webinar or all of our other webinars on the NRC FAHE website. And if you'd like to join our listserv, if you go to the main website, nrc-fahe.org, and scroll down a little bit on the website, you'll find a little subscribe section, and that's where you can join our listserv. Okay, so for today's webinar, before we get started, just kind of remind, if you do have questions, you can put those in the chat at any time, and our presenters will answer those as they have opportunity. And I will share with you a little bit of information about our presenters for today. So today's presenters are Justin and Alexis Black, and they're authors, speakers, business owners, and part of the Forbes Next 1000 class of 2021. Together, they've published an award-winning best-selling book titled Redefining Normal: How Two Foster Kids Beat the Odds and Discovered Healing, Happiness, and Love that's impacted over 15,000 individuals and families. With ROSE, which stands for Rising Over Societal Expectations, Empowerment Group, and Redefining Normal, they hope to continue the conversation on healthy relationships, mental health, and healing through speaking engagements, trainings, and book clubs. So Alexis and Justin, I'll hand it over to you.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. How you all doing? Hope everybody's doing great today. So we're going to go ahead and share our screen now.
Perfect.
All right, so there we go. And hopefully everyone can see our screen.
Yep, we can see that. All right, it's who are we? Next 1000.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to get it together.
All right, 1 second. There we go. Hopefully that works.
Perfect. So, 1 second.
I don't know why it's been so weird. One second. There we go.
Nope. I think we're still in the wrong setting.
No, you all can see that, right? Oh.
Yeah, it was good before. Yeah.
Okay.
It was.
So 1 second, because this is in like video mode. So 1 second.
Why is it doing that? That's so strange.
All right, can you all see now? Are we good?
It hasn't come up yet. Did you do the?
Okay. Okay. All right, perfect. We're good to go. Sorry about that. Sorry about that,
Looks great,
everybody. So yeah, so today, as mentioned, my name is Justin Black. I'm here with my amazing wife and business partner, Alexis Black. And today we'll be talking about redefining, rethinking, and reflecting on intentional relationships or relationships and intentional support for youth in foster care. So as mentioned, my name is Justin Black, and I'm here with my amazing wife, Alexis Black.
Yep. And you already sort of did our, introductions, but just a little recap. Co-founder of Redefining Normal. I am a foster care alumni, advocate, and the co-author of the Redefining Normal book. I graduated from Western Michigan University with a BBA in entrepreneurship, a BA in global studies, and minors in political science and nonprofit leadership. It is a mouthful. And then also I set the study abroad record for my university. I studied abroad 8 times, and then we co-developed a program together.
Yes, and my name is Justin Black. I graduated from Western Michigan University with degrees in public relations and African studies. And as mentioned already, doing keynote speeches, best-selling author, and was able to study urban and community development around the world in countries such as Rwanda, Uganda, Senegal, and South Korea.
And we do have the chat function open. So if you do have any questions, don't feel like you have to wait to the end. We can take those as we go.
Mm-hmm. So today, some of our goals we'll be discussing is to better understand how to interact with youth who've experienced trauma, challenge ourselves to become better leaders and examples for youth, and also strategize ways of developing community and healthy support systems for youth. So a quick question for you all. How many of you all in the chat, and feel free to interact using the chat and put your answers in the chat. So how many of you answer this poll question, and number of you have worked with youth for either 1 to 3 years, 4 to 8 years, or 10 plus years?
Wow, 10 years.
10 years, wow.
Oh my goodness, you guys are so fast.
I love it.
Wow, that's awesome. We only have a few, 1 to 3. Wow. That's so awesome.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, just congratulations on all the work that you all have done so far. And, we're always just trying to see how we can learn and challenge each other. So throughout this presentation, with your experience that you have, we ask you all just to continue to share and interact, because that's just as important as any of the information that we can share. Hearing your perspective and hearing your thoughts is extremely important. So we challenge you all to continue to engage and interact throughout the entire presentation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for commenting. That was probably the fastest responses we've ever had.
Mm-hmm. And next question is, in one word, and this is going to be pretty difficult, but in one word, describe your experience so far to the best of your ability.
Of working with youth. So how would you describe it? Enlightening, rewarding, rejuvenating, inspiring, roller coaster. We've gotten that one a lot.
Yeah.
Scary, challenging, uplifting, life-changing, woo-wee. Fun, difficult, fulfilling, interesting. We get that one a lot as well.
I love it. Yeah. So continue to use that chat section, continue to interact. And yeah, these are a lot of the things that we've heard before. So definitely a lot of different things, from difficult to fun to interesting. And what's crazy is that everybody's right. It is a roller coaster ride. It is fulfilling. It is difficult, and it's also fun and interesting. So what we want to talk about here is what is redefining normal. Now, a lot of people hear this and they think it's pandemic related, which in some sense, I guess it could be, but in all reality for us, redefining normal means that basically your normal is the identity that has been shaped by your family, community, and society. And as former foster youth, with us being former foster youth, the trauma and traumatic experiences that we've experienced has shaped our identity and has become normalized in our family and community. This has become our reality, and then also the image that we've had of ourselves. So with that being said, so many other youth like us through our universities, throughout the different states and throughout the entire country have normalized traumatic experiences. So we're redefining normal. We are challenging individuals, institutions, universities to identify that normal that has become trauma for so many people and work to redefine that one step and one day at a time. Mm-hmm. And with many of our presentations, we want to be vulnerable. We feel that we share our previous normal, what it used to be. And we feel that vulnerability is what we challenge each and every person to do on this call. But with vulnerability, we build relationships, we build bridges. And that's really what we're able to do with our company and with our book and business, is that building relationship through vulnerability. And as we build relationship through vulnerability, we share a bit of ourselves and sometimes parts that are uncomfortable. And we did that through our book, sharing some of our deepest trauma. And we want to, on this call today, challenge ourselves to be a bit vulnerable with you all. So I'll start just with me entering the system. I entered the foster care system at 9 years old. And I've grown up in Detroit pretty much my entire life until 18 or 19. And I believe I entered the system largely due because of mental health issues going unresolved on both sides of my family, where there were 2 to 3 generations of domestic violence on my dad's side and 2 generations of drug abuse on my mom's side. And with that combination going together, it was no question why I wasn't receiving the love and attention that I needed as a child growing up. And witnessing so many things around domestic violence, around drug abuse growing up, and having that become my normal as a child really changed my outlook and my perspective on life, or even on what I could become in life. So that's what was really told about my identity, that this is what I'll be, this is what all I'll be, you know, growing up in environments of no heat, no water sometimes, and experiencing tremendous homelessness, living in abandoned houses, living in homeless shelters, and so many other things became my normal, that my future only consisted of really feeling inferior to living an inferior lifestyle, or a lifestyle that just really was off-putting and just depressing. And how I expressed that in school really was, I was a class clown. I sought out attention, and whatever I can whatever I could do to get the attention of my peers is really what I wanted to do. And I saw that as love a lot of times. And that's how I received my love, because I didn't feel I was receiving that at home. So throughout time, you know, that just manifested itself into love, at least what I thought was love. So that became my normal, and it shaped my identity as well as a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for myself, I entered foster care at 13. But before that, my biological mother passed away by suicide. And that's how I actually learned in high school. That's how my grandma, my mom's mother, also died by suicide. And when she passed away, I went and lived with my biological father, who was physically, sexually, and emotionally abusive for about 8 years. And that told me a lot about my identity, as you can imagine. The first thing I learned was that love hurts. And then the next thing that I learned was that my value comes from my body. And from that, I entered into an abusive relationship at 13 that lasted up until I was 22. And most abusive relationships, actually, the average is 7 years. So I beat that one. And I notice now, of looking back, of how that relationship with my biological father, and even with my biological mother, and feeling like I had been abandoned and she left me to him, and all these feelings that now I can forgive, now I can move past. But, you know, growing up, especially during my teenage years, I really internalized that as towards my identity. And I expressed that in a lot of very unhealthy ways of being promiscuous, wearing things I shouldn't wear, doing a lot of things that I shouldn't be doing, and trying to attract a lot of attention, very negative attention, especially during high school, that I see now was pretty inappropriate.
So with that, we want to talk about a few statistics as we just keep this in mind throughout our interactions with youth that we have around us. Keep in mind throughout this presentation and just in life in general, so this can help motivate us to do better. So as you know, here's just some of the few unresolved needs and problems that we see in society, and just how trauma has impacted our families, communities, us as individuals, and just our society overall. So many of you may not know that trauma can last up to 5 generations within the family, and it can be passed down and normalized as culture and as so many other things and mislabeled. Also, 70% of US adults have experienced some form of trauma. And I can bet you during this pandemic that the numbers have even skyrocketed past that.
Yeah, and about 98% of youth in detention centers have experienced trauma as well, which is mind-blowing to me. It's almost 100%. And then there's over a $7.8 billion in social costs with the amount of foster youth that are aging out every single year, with every single youth averaging out to about $300,000 in social welfare costs over their lifetime.
So we want to talk a bit about ACEs, and we talked a bit about our trauma and what we've been through, but digging deeper into that, we want to talk about ACEs and what goes into expressing our identity and expressing who we are. And ACEs is a huge factor that goes into that.
Is anyone on the call familiar with what ACEs is? You can drop it in the chat. If you are familiar, unfamiliar.
How about a yes or no, thumbs up, thumbs down? Yes.
Awesome.
Everyone.
Well, I'll scan over this pretty quickly then. So ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And I'm so glad that most of you have heard of what it is. And so essentially it's broken down into these 3 categories when you look at essentially what makes up ACEs. And then I really love this visualization of what it actually looks like. So trauma, or in other words, ACEs, is the bottom of the iceberg. So it's essentially what we don't see. And oftentimes, the trauma is acted out through behavior. So we have to really look at what behaviors are being exhibited, and does that relate back to a trauma or ACEs? And looking back at my own experiences, I can 100% correlate different traumas that I've been through and my behaviors that I was showing.
So as we want to make this presentation as interactive as possible and hear from you all, kind of keeping in mind some of the experiences that we share with our vulnerability, keeping in mind those statistics that we shared in ACEs. With all this knowledge and information that you have with your experiences, what are your expectations you set for your youth? Things you expect them to do for themselves personally, academically, or professionally. We want to hear about some of your expectations. So feel free to share some of those expectations in the chat. And as we give examples of expectations that we've heard.
And well, real quick, another reason why we talk about this, leading back to what we just discussed with ACEs, because just being vulnerable again, ACEs, as we know, is from 0 to 10, 0 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. And myself, I have a 10, and then Justin has a 9. And so we've heard time and time again from people that essentially they say that, those that have higher ACEs scores, they're not necessarily worth the resources, worth the time and energy to put into them, because they're pretty much already long gone. Let's focus on the youth that don't have as much trauma or ACEs. And so really for us, it was the people that surrounded us and gave us that love and support and continue to pour into us and have expectations for us moving forward, even bigger than what we saw for ourselves. They saw past that trauma that we had experienced. So that's another reason why we do bring that up. So again, what are the expectations you set for your youth? Things that you expect them to do for themselves, personally, academically, and professionally. We have a lot of answers. I love it. So we have personal responsibility for their actions, honesty, speaking their truth, expectations depending on age or experience. I love that you said that. Usually general expectations around self-regulation, understanding that support and scaffolding will be needed in different ways for different people.
Another component to expectations is kind of the goal setting aspect. And we'll talk a bit about goal setting down the line when we talk about community. But I want us to know your all thoughts on kind of what maybe quantitative goals do you have for your youth also? And it's I love the answers that we've received so far. As I'm reading through, I just want to challenge you all, push you all a little bit further. What are maybe some of the quantitative goals that you have of maybe going to school every day, or at least going to school 4 times a week, receiving above a certain GPA, being able to write out how they feel, or journal how they feel once a week, or what they're going through once a week. What quantitative goals do you have as well? And if you don't have any quantitative goals, can just continue to share the general expectations that you have for your youth.
I also really like the answer I saw where it says, looking at the youth's definition of success. Because I know for us, we had to really dig deep in when writing our book of what are our definitions based on really love, family, success, all these things. We had to redefine what that looked like, because looking at the definitions placed before us by our family and our communities, it's very different from our definitions that we have now. So I really love that you said that. We have SMART goals, absolutely. Passing core classes or improving regular class school attendance. We have straight A's. My son agreed to keep straight A's for his freedom on computer. I love it.
Yeah, they keep the incentives in there. Getting involved in the extracurricular activity. I love that. Getting a good night's sleep, or making an effort to have a bedtime schedule. I love that. That's very important. And it's very important to have specific, and someone mentioned SMART goals, but it's very important to also, as you have your expectations, and as you talk to them about these expectations, and I see someone said, like, at least working towards an effort to have a bedtime schedule, and having an expectation like, hey, is your bedtime at least around 10 p.m., 11 p.m.? Like, how does that look? And having those concrete expectations to let them know that, there's not too much it's not always flexibility. A lot of teenagers like myself, I used to always try to see how I could bend the rules and be flexible, but having a hard expectation for yourself really helps you hold yourself accountable. And as you have these expectations for them, it helps you hold them accountable as well. Someone said going to school every day, he's healthy to do so, at least 9 hours of sleep at night, and trying to have physical play every day. Amazing. So continue to drop those answers in the chat. We want to continue to hear those and hear about those expectations. But also remember that each youth that you work with have a unique set of expectations that may be different from the next one. So as we continue to shape our expectations, try to keep that in mind. Leading into expectations, first you want to be able to start with leading by example. So I love that you all flooded the chat section with different things that you have set in your expectations for them. But as you set your expectations for them, make sure you are meeting the expectations that you set for them as well. So this requires you, as you set those expectations for them, to take a deep dive into your insecurities to make sure that you aren't projecting anything onto them. So anything that you expect of them, you expect them to have a bedtime of 10:30, 11 p.m., whatever it is. Of course, yours may be a bit different, but if you expect them to have a specific bedtime, yours don't have to be the exact same, but make sure you are holding yourself to the same standard of, waking up on time early, being productive, working hard, doing your best at what you can do. If you expect them to work hard, then they should have an expectation for you to work hard as well. And having that expectation for them requires you to take a deep dive into your insecurities to see, am I expecting them to do something that I'm not expecting of myself? And that really takes a serious conversation that you need to have with yourself to really evaluate what you're doing.
And what we've noticed from our experiences and with working with over, I don't know, probably at least 1,000 youth by now, youth are oftentimes expecting you to give up on them. So really consistency is key when building relationships. That was one of the biggest reasons why I was able to build a connection and such deep trust with my foster now adoptive parents, because they showed me consistency through their actions, through what they, what they said they did. And even with punishments, even when I didn't want them to, they still follow through with it. They weren't ever, on the fence or wishy-washy or changed their mind. They were always consistent in what it is that they said and did. And then also besides that, make sure that you're setting those unique expectations that bring the best out of youth.
Mm-hmm. And that last point goes to, the differences between every youth won't have the same expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Some may be to get straight A's. Some youth may be, those C+ students. So having that higher expectation or having different unique expectations for them is extremely important, and not expecting them to underachieve, but expecting them to have unique expectations so they can meet the bar and still be challenged as well.
Mm-hmm.
So now we want to go into the power of community, but really, what is community? Community, as we've defined it and found, is a gathering of people with shared principles and core values, usually working towards similar goals for a particular area. And this could include teachers, church members, coaches, other people in the field. These can also include social workers, case workers, and other people who are in an environment, foster parents and adoptive parents as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you want to make sure that you're surrounding youth with positive examples of community and leadership. This is something I absolutely learned from my adoptive parents of, looking at who they surround themselves with and the influence that has on them and then their other kids, and then how also it impacts me in building out my network and just learning that skill from them. And also just constant words and examples of encouragement. I mean, we do have power in our words and what it is that we say. So make sure that we are constantly speaking words and examples of encouragement.
Mm-hmm. And that also goes to just basically relying on your community for your stability and understanding that you're not doing this alone. So as you set those expectations for the youth, that they have a full circle of people around them, encouraging them to reach that goal, and having a common interest with someone who, if you're in agreement with reaching a goal with multiple other people and you're all committed to helping that individual, then you'll more than likely be successful or have a better chance of being successful than not.
Mm-hmm.
So yes or no in the group chat, how many of you have heard of the 7 life domains? Yes or no, or thumbs up, thumbs down. How many of you have heard of the 7 life domains?
Oh, wow.
Everybody.
That's far more than we're used to. That's awesome. Oh, we got to know. Yay. So we can go over it. So the 7 life domains was actually created by the Annie Casey Foundation. We cannot take credit for it. So basically we learned about this through the Seat of Scholars program at Western Michigan University. And this was something that was really pivotal, I think, to both of us, because we both mainly more Justin, I would say we tend to have like a domino effect where we're like, if we're not doing well in one area, we feel like we're doing awful and failing in every area. And I do this as well. To me, it was really important to see that I can be a dynamic individual with many different aspects of who I am and what makes that up. So it's broken down into these 7 different life domains. There's education and academics, finances and employment, housing, physical and mental health, social relationships and connections, cultural and personal identity, and life skills. And so every time that we would go in and meet with our campus coach, they would say, let's go through the life domains, give me, positive and negatives or growth or areas of growth and what you need to work on maybe in each of those. So I thought that was something really important to look at, because in any way that I felt, I may have different strengths in some areas, there are areas where I definitely have areas of growth. And what was really great is if I did have an area of growth, or, another word would be weakness, but I could see that as an area where I could make a connection with somebody in the community, somebody on campus, and my campus coach would oftentimes support me in building out my network. So I would have a solid group of individuals that I can move forward with through my college career and even after, to support me in all these different areas, because you don't want to focus on one individual to provide all of these. And nobody on this call should be providing all of these. That's not, that's not your job. That's not what you should be doing. And your job really is to support youth in building up their own structure and their own network moving forward, so that they can have a very strong foundation outside of just you or maybe the individuals that you're closest to.
Mm-hmm. So our next question is, now reflect on those 7 life domains, and we'll go back and show you, but have you found others that fulfill these roles? Now, there were 7 areas that youth need to be filled with. And there's no way, as Alexis said, that one individual can fill all 7 of those. We would say maybe 2 to 3 max. So have you found others to fill these roles, and what other puzzle pieces have you found? So maybe with this activity, we want you to kind of identify first, what role do you play in the life of youth, and what role or what areas do they still need support with?
Mm-hmm.
And this,
we'll go back
and this is done to help you identify maybe what areas can they be supported in. So, for example, let's say that let's say you're a teacher on this call, right? So you're fulfilling the education and academics role. You're a professor or teacher in this on this call, and you found that a student that you have, you may have supported them above and beyond maybe just what you needed to. So you get to learn a little bit more about them, and then you find out that in their environment where they are, they're not being fulfilled culturally or with their personal identity. So maybe you know of someone who has a similar culture, similar ethnicity, similar race of that they have, and maybe I can support them and be a mentor to them. And you work to do that. So with the question that we have, so first identify, what role do you play within these 7 life domains? Do you support them in education, academics, housing, life skills? And what roles can you say they really need help with?
Awesome. So even if you aren't in this space yet, what are maybe some areas that you could see yourself supporting youth in going forward? So maybe you know that you want to be a social worker, or you want to be a teacher. Maybe what could you see yourself doing if you aren't already in this space?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. We got life skills, physical, mental health, physical, social relationships and connections, mental and physical health, life skills, education. And we do very much understand that there are several, pieces of overlap. Like say if, foster parents, you may provide housing, you may provide mental health support at times, those supporting with personal identity, life skills. So there's absolutely a lot of overlap depending on your role that you play, but just know that you aren't meant to fulfill all of these at all times, that you really need to continue to build out your network as well as build out theirs, because they're learning from you in this process. And that's really how I learned to build up my solid foundation and my network that I have now moving forward into adulthood.
Someone said education, academics, mental health. Someone say cultural and personal identity. Yeah, so thank you all for sharing that. As That's amazing for your vulnerability, sharing that. And for those who have worked with youth, again, we've seen on the call that there have been some who work with youth who've done 10 plus years, 1 to 3 years. What have you found has been one of the biggest areas that they struggle with? Someone said that we independent living skills program support young people in education, academics, finances, employment, housing, social relationships, and connections and life skills. So I love the key word is we though, is we. So not you as an individual, but we. So that's extremely important. It's fine that organizations and programs are fulfilling youth in these ways, but one of the biggest things that we found is there are individuals trying to fill all 7 of these.
Family relationships, absolutely. Depends on the person and the experiences they've had. Absolutely. I mean, you're going to maybe provide more support for certain youth and maybe, I guess more personalized support for other ones, depending on their background, what they've experienced and what phase of life they are, maybe just even depending on the season of life that they're in and what they are open to receiving. Personal accountability, accepting responsibility for their actions, vulnerability, acceptance, and trust. Absolutely. I mean, these go into that social relationships, connections, and that personal identity aspects of it as well.
Thank you all for participating in that too. And like I said, it's very important to identify your role as well as the areas that need to be filled for the youth that you're working with. So someone else said finances and employment is challenging for you to grasp when they have been taught how to do it, when they've not been taught how to do it. So cultural and personal identity. Yeah, I've found that to be a huge one. And so many different areas in transitions of foster care. Youth not feeling validated culturally and personally. That's a huge one. So we want to talk a bit about the role that our mentors and foster parents have played in our life. And Alexis can go ahead and explain this photo over here to the left.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually adopted at 26, which is pretty abnormal. As we know, most youth are generally adopted up until 18. But I decided that even though I met my foster parents when I was 17, I think, I waited until I was 26. So about 10 years later. And mainly it was for Medicaid reasons. I didn't want to lose my Medicaid. And I just always knew in my heart that they were my parents. And for the last 10 years, I've been so involved with them with holidays. That's where I go when I they tell me I can come home anytime. They call me their daughter. They would say, we don't need this paperwork to show that you are a daughter. But for me, that was something that was very important to me. And so this is actually the first time that I stepped into a courtroom after I testified against my biological father and I went to a sentencing. So what very traumatic moments in courtrooms has turned into something really beautiful. And I was able to kind of reclaim that space for something that was very positive. And just in general for the roles that it could be foster parents, could be mentors, really that played in my life was just changing my entire perspective and dynamic that I view the world. My biological family was very, I would say, selfish and transactional, where, it was, if you want me to do something for you, you have to do something for me. And I just didn't feel love on that level. Whereas my adoptive family and the people that we surround ourselves now is very selfless and unconditional love. And also I became a Christian because of my support network and just so many different ways that it has changed my way of being and living and understanding what it means to be, in a healthy relationship. Absolutely wouldn't be with Justin right now, especially after being in that abusive relationship without having these examples and knowing what it means to be, a mother, a sister, all these different roles that I never really experienced growing up in a healthy way.
So for me also, her adoptive parents played a huge role in my life. Always just being amazing examples of God's way of loving unconditionally, supporting me unconditionally. And during the pandemic, we actually lived with them for 9 months. And that's where we started writing our book. And, I lived with them and wasn't expected to give them any money or any rent or anything, but they just loved me and they allowed me to stay there as I prepare for, my career, launched our business, wrote our book and became bestsellers. And all of our success is largely because of them and what they've done for us and allowing us to stay with them during the pandemic when times. And so many foster youth, if you know, have experienced homelessness, kicked off campus during this time, but I had a good support system in them that allowed me to live in a home that I live in now. And we live in this home that we are now because of the sales from the book that we wrote while we were living with them. So it all comes full circle. And it's just a reminder to let you know that if you can go above and beyond in your support, I'm not saying that you exactly have to house youth, if you're not in that position to, but if you are able to go above and beyond what you can do and your support for youth, then we believe that support will go full circle in what you're able to do.
Absolutely. So we already talked a bit about, mindset shift, but with creating our new normal, essentially it was, you could see this in the book where we had our life that we lived as a child and growing up, and we had to think, is this something that we want moving forward? And for the both of us, I would say we didn't know what we wanted, but we knew it was essentially the complete opposite of what we were experiencing and witnessing around us. So for us, it really was, we're going to start with doing everything the complete opposite and just see what happens. And then really it was being connected with incredible people who have ended up being mentors or pastors, friends, whatever it may be. We just decided that we wanted something better for ourselves. So we had a complete mindset shift about what we wanted moving forward and creating a new normal for ourselves based on the reality that we wanted to see around us. We did have a lot of difficulties during the process for both of us. We really had a lot of shaming and guilt and all these things from biological family. I specifically have had my brother not talk to me for over 6 months when I left Flint, Michigan to transfer to Western, because he didn't understand it. I had a job, an internship, and I was a full-time student on a scholarship. Why would I leave? But for me, it was, I wanted something better for myself. I wanted to leave that circumstance. I only saw individuals around me that lived the life that I didn't really want to live. And I didn't feel like I could escape that being there. So I just knew that I needed to leave. So that was something that we really both experienced going through the process, amongst many other things, such as, mental health struggles and counseling and different struggles that we've had, through that, and really just learning to rely on other people in the process that we weren't used to, because we were used to trying to figure out everything for ourselves.
So where we are now, as we've mentioned before, myself and Alexis, we met in 2016 at Western Michigan University. And, so much has happened since then. She's challenged me to travel abroad. And as we mentioned before, she holds the record for study abroad at our university. And I didn't challenge her with that, but I was able to do 5 study abroad programs. And together we've traveled to roughly 30 countries so far in the past 4 to 5 years. And so with that, incorporating all of that into our experience, we've been able to really create something now where we're redefining normal. We list in the book, we list the statistics of 1 in 3 Black men go to jail or prison at some point in our lifetime. Only 3% of foster youth graduate from college. And some of the statistics that you saw earlier that we list. And we show one by one how we were able to overcome those statistics, given different strategies, different support networks, and just our process of coping with our trauma.
And we do have the Rose from Concrete podcast, and Rose stands for Rising Over Societal Expectations. And then we have Rose Media Group, which was actually created because of Redefining Normal. When we taught ourselves the self-publishing process, we really want to help other speakers and authors with this, go through the same sort of process without having to start from square one where we did.
And this just goes to show, identifying the statistics and the things set before us, but being intentional about how we can overcome by creating different companies and businesses and platforms to express ourselves, like podcasts in our company and business.
And the podcast is available on all platforms if anybody's interested.
So what does resilience look like? So resilience looks like flexibility, strong communication and problem solving skills, huge on a support system, empathy, finding strengths assessment, using resources or skills, initiative and persistence. All these incorporated tie into what resilience looks like, what the characteristics needed to be resilient. As a foster care advocate, some of the skills that we want to try to implement into the youth that we work with, and keeping this in the back of our head as we create systems and environments of support for the people we're working with.
So when looking at the actual definition, because we really love that. So resilience is the ability to adapt to negative circumstances or adversity and continue to grow and thrive. Resilience is not a character trait. Rather, it is something that can be nurtured and developed in the context of a responsive relationship. And I think that's where we all fit into that, because you don't necessarily have to be a foster parent. Not everybody's meant to be one by any means. That could be a mentor, that could be a teacher, social worker, whatever it is. Are you a responsive adult or individual in that circumstance that you can show what it is to be resilient and to push through certain things? Because we do need these different levels of support and examples.
So with continuing the conversation, some of the things and topics we want you to be able to keep in mind is the necessary community support pieces. So think about the 7 life domains and all those the different components of that, and how you can do your best in your role, but also fulfill the other roles within that 7 life domain with community members, with those around the youth, different mentors, church members, teachers, whatever it is, try to help fulfill those roles and those spaces for the youth.
And we really love these sort of spaces, really because it's a way to bring individuals together for a similar cause or purpose. And really it's to support these youth. So I really love that there are so many different aspects and levels of everybody's experience with youth. So you can really create that community together to support each other on what it is you've learned through this process, especially with navigating things such as relationship with biological families, and how do you go about preventing ACEs and creating purpose for the youth that you support. So these are something that you can support each other in continuing the conversation. We're always here to continue the conversation with additional presentations or just emailing us as well. And we're going to provide that in a moment as well. So this is actually a review that we received from an individual, Amanda Williams, who read our book. And it says, Redefining Normal not only gives us a glimpse into their stories, it gives hope and a map for others in care. As a foster parent, reading this book makes the long nights, longer conversations, and many tears with young adults even more hope-filled. I strongly recommend this book for anyone looking to know more about child welfare, considering fostering, needs a reminder that wounds heal and people mend, or just anyone who's a good person and needs reminders that there are other good people in this world. It's definitely one of my favorite reviews that we've received so far. So hopefully that encourages you to, check out our work and what it is that we do. We did put our heart and soul into this. And these are just a few things that we hope individuals get from our book. Again, the full name is Redefining Normal, How to Foster Kids, Beat the Odds, and Discover Healing, Happiness, and Love. And we really encourage you all to please stay in touch with us. I'm going to put our email and our website into the chat. So feel free to screenshot this, whatever you, would like to do. And for everybody on the call today, special for you, we're going to give you 50% off autographed copies. That's available on our website only. And there's the website. And so please check that out. So you have to use promo code 50OFFRN. So 50OFFRN is the promo code where you get 50% off the autographed copies. And so if you are interested in that, that is something that we're offering.
And here are just a few additional resources. So feel free to contact us for more information, but we have a non-part curriculum for youth and students. So this is not listed here, but on our website, if you contact us, you'll be able to find it. And some of the things that we cover in that non-part curriculum is healthy versus unhealthy relationships, which helps us identify core principles and values. Redefining normal, so helping the youth go through that redefining normal process and helping them be intentional about creating a life that they want to live. The community development aspect for the youth, as well as the community aspect for the advocates as well. So if you do know other faculty or staff who maybe need this type of training or more in-depth training, feel free to contact us as well. We have this training as well as many others. And one of our most popular is the self-care, self-love for the youth as well, helping them identify or be more established in their identity and uncovering who they are outside of the trauma. And
so we do appreciate every single one that's been a person that's been on this call. If you could all take out your phones and scan this QR code, we would really appreciate it. If you could take it should be more than 3 minutes, really. I think it's like 6 questions. It gives us great feedback moving forward as we continue to do these presentations of what you like, what you didn't like. If you hated it, tell us. If you loved it, tell us. We want any and all feedback.
If you did hate the presentation, make sure you go to our website, let us know. It's called Joe's Donuts. Go to joesdonuts.com and let us know your thoughts if you did hate the presentation.
But if you loved it, go to our website, redefiningnormal.com. So please take a moment, and we really, really appreciate your feedback. And so please take out your phone, scan this QR code, and we want to open up for questions because that's another reason why we are here. And for every single person that's on the call, we do have a free resource for every single person. It's how to support teens in foster care. So we put that together, and after this presentation, we can get everyone's email addresses and we'll send that out to you. So again, that's a free resource on how to support teens in foster care. And
we have our social medias in the bottom left corner. So if you are on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, check out the bottom left corner for our social medias, where you can get daily information about redefining normal, reducing trauma, and just support in your field and what however you're supporting the youth that you're working with. You'll get daily resources and information about that. So stay connected with us either on our email, website, or social media.
And I'm putting in the promo code right now if you are interested. But if you have questions, drop them in the chat. You can even unmute, and we would love to answer questions.
So just as a reminder, I've had a couple of people ask about the recording. So this recording, along with all of the other NRC FAHE webinars, will be posted on the NRC FAHE YouTube page and also on our website. So I've included a link to the YouTube page in the chat, and I will also include a link to our webinar archive that shows the slides.
So looking at the chat now, someone asked, what advice would you have for students who are preparing to go into various fields working with families that include foster youth? So first and foremost, I would advise them to contact us so we can work with them with training one-on-one, just to see how we can best support them in many different areas. But so much of this work requires self-reflection, and that's why we would love for you all to be able to kind of book a presentation or training with us so we can go further in depth about some of those insecurities that you have, some of those triggers that you may have, some of those traumatic experiences or things that you may not be aware of in your life. So going through the self-reflection process as much as possible, identifying areas of growth and just things that may push your buttons and may provoke certain emotions within you that may not always be positive and negative, or positive within your life. So the self-reflection process is extremely important when you're working with families. And I would say, if I could say one thing, just the vulnerability piece is huge. We always talk about vulnerability, but it's a necessary piece when you're in that space.
Another piece of advice I always give is make sure that you have several mentors around you. Really, mentors are a way for you to gain such incredible insight and advice and guidance, all these things that you don't have to go through yourself, that you can have somebody there to walk you through things. You know, if you have questions, whatever it may be, these are people that are invested in you. So make sure that you do have solid mentors around you who are willing to support you in that process. That's absolutely one of my biggest pieces of support or advice, sorry. And then we have a question that says, knowing then and now, what is or was the most important form of support that impacted you the most?
So one of the most important forms of support for me was that one, the expectation piece, but the expectations combined with words of affirmation that we kind of discussed during our presentation. So even as a child or as a teenager, I always wanted to go to college, but I knew in the back of my head that college wasn't for me because I wasn't smart enough, or whatever I had experienced. I just knew that I felt like I was too dumb to go to college pretty much. So with that being said, I got an environment where people started to speak life into me, where they said to me, you know, we know you're going to college. That's not the question. Question is, you know, what GPA are you going to graduate with? Trying to get me above a 3.5, which graduated with about like a 3.3, 3.4, so pretty decent. And yeah, just the words of affirmation and expectations. You know, I started working hard because I had such high expectations, or I really wanted to do it for the people who believed in me and not even for myself at some point. So I think the expectations combined with the words of affirmations really helped me be successful today.
Yeah, I feel like I would say the exact same thing. Next question was, to what extent do you feel the child welfare system has helped you heal? What are some of the things you change about child welfare system in supporting youth, young people to heal? I would say for me, the fact that I was able to leave the circumstances that I grew up in, that I was, even though I was put with my aunt and uncle, which was absolutely not ideal. It was another sort of abusive situation. But if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have met my my foster now adopted parents. So, I mean, I am thankful for all the experience that I have. I wouldn't necessarily change what those are. But for me, it was really taking me out of the environment that I grew up in and getting me into a different household with a different life experiences and perspectives and things like that. That was one of the things that I would say and why I attribute foster care is a reason why I'm here today. And in a lot of ways, it saved me. And then what would you say are some of the things you change in supporting young people to heal?
Some of the things that would change about child welfare systems and supporting young people to heal. I think sometimes we identify individuals as saviors for youth instead of, like, we try to find just a home for youth, but what's more important than just a home is that community. So identify, and I know it's super hard to find homes for youth. So trying to find a whole entirely healthy community is almost nearly impossible. But if you really want to be intentional about supporting child welfare and supporting the youth, you have to make investments in the community, invest in the skills, invest in the jobs, invest in just the way of the quality of living in those communities. Because even if that household is decently healthy, when they walk outside, they go next door, they're going to be influenced. They're going to be influenced by the things around them. So it's just extremely important to invest our time, energy, and money into community. So I hate to say it, but the saying that it takes a village to raise a child, they're going to walk outside the household and be influenced by somebody. So.
And next question was, what are some forms of self-care that we both have embraced throughout our healing process? I think it really, for me, it depends on the season that I'm in. Like one season, I'm like, I really need a journal. I need to write it all down. And then another season, I'm like, right now, I don't want to write it all down because I'm not ready to continue to deal with that. If I write it down, it makes it more real. And so I'll, excel in academics is my way of self-care. So it really has depended, upon the season of life that I'm in. But for both of us, definitely therapy individually. We have done therapy together. And then I know Justin does working out every day. I'm not on his level. Maybe one day I will be, but that is something I know that he has done. And you do a lot of writing.
I think for me, the most important thing is the spiritual practices and surrendering myself to God on a daily basis, and taking that time in the morning to really do that is extremely important for me. And I think I would encourage everybody to do it, whether your prayer is prayer, meditation, whatever it is, to do that self-reflection time. Self-reflecting is an ongoing process. Do you both attend therapy? Yes, we do. Or have some kind of group outlet. I meet people who say I've had enough treatment. I'm all healed. Healing is an ongoing journey, so you're never all healed. Like you can be. Healing is a lifetime process. We're never on the other side of it.
Yeah, so, I really don't like when people make those sort of statements, because my brother says stuff like that all the time, where it's like, why do you keep going to therapy? Aren't you healed yet? And it's like, why am I on your timeline? I'm on my timeline. Every day, something could come up where it could be a smell, a sound, something could trigger me, and it puts me back into that mindset. So I have to continue every single day to be intentional that I'm not, feeding into, like even looking at ACEs and seeing what am I predisposed to, and every single day knowing that because I'm more predisposed to these things, I have to be more intentional on not doing those things. So like alcoholism is in both of our families, or addiction. So we have to be super intentional where we don't drink. We don't have medicine if we don't need to take it. So we have to be intentional on those things. And so with that, it comes with ongoing treatment through our healing process. We've written a book. We talk about our trauma and healing every single day, yet we still go to therapy. So for somebody to say that to you, I would just say, maybe they do have their best interest in mind, but that's something you have to take with a grain of salt and continue and push forward, and know that this is your own healing journey and not anybody else's timeline.
And there's a new experience every day. Like, I'm 24 now. I've never been 25. I need someone to help me understand that. I need my mentors. I need therapists. I've never been 26. I need somebody to help me understand. And I've never been a father yet. So I need people to be around me to understand that and support me in that. So all these new experiences, if we feel that we don't need therapy, we don't need counseling, we don't need mentors, we don't need support, and that's a sense of pride and almost like an ego that we have where we're too good for that support. And you never want to be in that mindset where you don't feel like you need support. Because if you feel like you don't need support, then you must be like, have you lived 200 years and you know it all, literally. So even if you have lived 200 years, you never been 201. So you need somebody to help you out with that. And the last question is, what would you say is the biggest hurdle you faced when you started doing, I'm guessing she said, doing this type of work? And do you remember how to beat that hurdle?
That's our last question.
How the biggest hurdle? It's been so many hurdles. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
There's been hurdles as far as trying to create impactful. I think one of the biggest I would say is helping people understand how valuable the process is, and going through the process and starting it of the redefining process, understanding it's because it really takes you out of one world and into another world and way of thinking and everything. So it's very hard and difficult to get people from thinking one way to thinking another way. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things that we deal with outside of just everyday business stuff, of course.
Probably the biggest hurdle for me was really working through my perspective of like, what are people going to think about me when they know, the most intimate pieces of my life, whether it's a future employer, grad school, family members, whatever it may be, they're going to have their judgments and preconceptions about me before I even walk in the room based on what they know about my story. But again, that's part of, being a foster youth. That's already there. And people are going to have their judgment. So I had to continue to remember why I'm doing this work and really push past that, even though we have had some negativity along the way, and whether it's our own personal fears or listening to other people. But but that was one of the biggest hurdles for me. And that was our last question. I know we are out of time. I'm gonna put their email in there one more time. So feel free to reach out to us. If you have any organizations that you'd like us to come talk to, let us know, email us.
Yeah, we
Thank you
sorry. No, we have our book available as well. So check out our website, and let's stay connected.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Justin and Alexis, for being here. I appreciate you taking the time and talking with us. And just a reminder, this presentation, along with all the others, will be posted soon on the NRSC FAHE website. And we hope you all join us again for a future webinar. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.